Inference Plus, Story Short Number 16, Series B. When the family of Mr. Philippe Audu immigrated from Chartres, they brought with them a trunk of threadbare garments, two young boys, one of whom was a swaddled Philippe, and the formula for an exceptionally good hand cream. Even in a region like Lorraine, which was renowned for its high-quality cosmetics, the Audu formula was considered a fine product. The only obstacle to the family's success was a long-standing feud between themselves and the Glissants, whose rival hand cream formula had a foothold among the nobles of Lorraine, leaving no place in the market for the Audus. Despite their product's superior hydrating properties, the Audus toiled in comparative penury, peddling their product to dockmen and milkmaids who, while grateful for such an effective soothing agent, were hardly in a position to pay the sort of prices that would have allowed the family to purchase a larger villa or enjoy the better wines brought in from Anjou. They contented themselves with the middling Cabernets from Orléans, and that was until the drought of 1913. The drought led to a reduction in grape production in the region, which in turn led to a scarcity of grape seeds, which in turn drove up the cost of grapeseed oil. Grapeseed oil was a key ingredient in the Audus formula, and while olive oil was a fine choice for some applications, hand cream was not one of them. Jerome and Mathilde, ever optimists, determined that the drought was God's way of nudging them on a boat to America, which was how the family found its new home in Herman, and a dynasty was born. As little Philippe grew, so too did the success of Audu hand perfecting cream. Herman was a bustling Missouri wine town that reminded Jerome and Mathilde very much of Chartres, and the wineries there were more than happy to sell them the discarded grape seeds for pennies. They pressed the oil themselves and found it to be of an even nicer quality than what they'd accessed back in France, and were soon receiving orders faster than they could fill them. The hand cream was good, and the cachet of its French provenance appealed to the wives of newly minted titans of industry. It wasn't long before the family's success necessitated a move to a bigger factory in St. Louis, and that was the beginning of the Audu cosmetics empire. Despite their success, Jerome and Mathilde remained humble, a virtue they instilled in their two boys. The oldest, Martine, lacked a head for business, but Philippe possessed a natural aptitude. There were no hard feelings between them when Philippe took over sole responsibility for managing the company. Martine was pleased that he could focus his energy on the goat farm in which he'd invested, and Philippe was pleased that the company would be able to offer a line of goat's milk bath soaks to the public. Mathilde worried that Philippe worked too hard and would never find a nice girl and settle down, but he seemed happy enough despite the absence of a bride. Jerome assured her that fate would step in when the time was right, just as it had for them. In the fall of 1946, on a visit back to Chartres, Philippe was struck at last by Cupid's arrow. The Glissants, the Audus' greatest rivals, had suffered greatly during the war. The Nazis had razed their factory, and both of their sons had been killed at Midway. Only a daughter, Charlotte, remained. She was a pretty young woman of 25, with smooth pink cheeks that dimpled when she laughed, and a head of soft brown curls. More important than her beauty was her intelligence. Philippe was stunned by the ease with which Charlotte could add numbers. Before the Clisson factory had closed, she had served as its chief accountant, and for good reason. The irresistible combination of dimples and financial savvy left Philippe besotted, and they were married within a month. When he introduced his lovely bride to the Audu Cosmetics Company's board of directors as both his wife and the company's new head accountant, he was met with stunned silence. At best, members of the board were skeptical that a woman could manage such a task. At worst, there were resignations on the spot. Philippe held firm that his new wife would manage the finances. When the next quarter's profits showed a 22% increase in profits, even the most misogynistic of skeptics were forced to extend a grudging respect, and further overt grumbling ceased. It was a good marriage and a fine business partnership. The 11 children they raised together served as a testament to the happiness of their union, and when Charlotte and Philippe retired to Florida, they left the company in the capable hands of their offspring, while they enjoyed touring alligator sanctuaries and playing golf in Boca. Their grandchildren visited in the summers, and they greatly enjoyed the fruits of their labor. Jerome and Mathilde, Philippe thought, would have been pleased. When he died in his sleep at the ripe old age of 94, Charlotte mourned. While 94 years is, by anyone's measure, a long life, she still wished she could have just one more day with the love of her life. Per his wishes, Philippe's remains would be buried in the family plot back in Herman, near his parents and his brother Martin. Ever diligent, he had planned the details of the funeral himself to spare Charlotte and his children the burden. Considerate as always. His grandsons, 6 strapping young men, would serve as pallbearers, carrying his tasteful walnut casket from the small country church to the adjacent cemetery. It was a bitterly cold January day, and the dry, icy wind chafed the hands and faces of all who attended. Charlotte, always concerned about the health and comfort of her grandchildren, insisted that all of them apply a generous layer of Eau d'Oeuvre hand-perfecting cream, lest they suffer from windburn. The young men protested, but they knew better than to argue with Grandmère Charlotte when it came to matters of moisturization. The service was lovely, a fitting tribute to such a fine and decent man. When the priest said the final blessing, there wasn't a dry eye in the church. Philippe's 6 handsome grandsons gently placed their hands upon the handles of the coffin and followed behind Charlotte as she walked slowly toward her husband's eternal resting place, the rest of the family following behind like a gaggle of snuffling geese. The first steps were accomplished without incident. All appeared to be well, until the first boy, a barrel-chested lunk of 23 named Lars, for his mother's German grandfather, felt his hand begin to slip from the handle. His fingers slowly uncoiled, seemingly of their own accord, and no matter how desperately he grabbed the handle, it continued to slither from his grip with the serpentine wateriness of an eel. When his hand finally gave way, the corner of the coffin that had been his to support listed aggressively towards the frozen ground. After that, the others fell away like petals from a dying rose. One after another, the well-lotioned hands lost their ability to grip the handles. Horrified faces shouted from the crowd as the casket plummeted downward directly toward the snuffling figure of Grandmère Charlotte. When the heavy walnut box fell atop her, death was instantaneous, her brittle bird-like bones no match for solid walnut. In all likelihood, she hadn't felt a thing, and had simply awakened in the afterlife, reunited with her beloved Philippe. That, at least, was what the family said to comfort themselves amid the strange and brutal tragedy. Lars took most of the blame upon himself, lamenting he had not insisted on waiting to apply the hand cream. Lars's mother patted her son gently, insisting that Grandmère Charlotte would have wanted things no other way.